Hello, welcome everybody. My name's Kieran Wood and welcome to the Efficient IP webinar on how smart DDI can enable Gartner's 3 network automation recommendations. Like I said, my name's Kieran Wood. I'm the Sales Director and Country Manager for the UK and Northern Europe, for Efficient IP, and I'm joined today by one of my Senior Solutions Architects for Efficient IP, Nick Fennell. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some just general housekeeping items, if I can, please. If you're joining us live, which most of you will be, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the replay recording of the session. We hope that you'll be able to share this link with your peers so they can view this webcast on demand at their convenience. So please do share it with them. Also attached to the same email that you will receive will be to download a copy of the slides from today. So, please download those, have a read through. If you wish to ask questions during the session today, please do so. Please feel free to use the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and we will take questions at the end of the presentation, if that's okay. Just going on to an agenda. I know everyone loves an agenda. We'll try and keep it fairly short and sweet for key topics, really. It's the introduction, which is what I'm doing now. So I'll tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do as a business, as Efficient IP. Then my colleague Nick, who's the brains behind all of this. Nick will talk to you more around network automation today. 3 ways to improve network automation based on Gartner's recommendations, and then the key takeaways, and then we will get into some questions. Okay, so if I tell you a little bit about Efficient IP, who we are and what we do as a business. As you can see, this is myself. There you go. So this is myself. I'm the Sales Director for Northern Europe, and Nick Fennell, who's our Solutions Architect. So Nick's going to give the technical presentation. So Efficient IP in brief, and who we are and what we do as a business. In simple form, we're a global network automation and security company specialising in DDI. Our mission and value proposition in very simple form is to enable dynamic and secure communications between users and their applications. And we do this using 3 key ingredients, really. That's simplifying network management, so in terms by automating control of your infrastructure and applications, for error-free provisioning, policy compliance, and accelerated rollout of apps and services. Secondly, protecting users' apps and data. Obviously, security is paramount by securing DNS and to ensure service continuity. And then finally, by optimizing routing of traffic from the users to those applications. As one of the world's fastest growing DDI vendors, Efficient IP as a business helps organizations drive business efficiency through agile, secure, and reliable network infrastructures. Efficient IP has expanded our reach internationally since our inception in 2004. So 16 going on 17 years as a business, providing solutions, professional services, and 24/7 support globally with the help of our global business partners and our partner ecosystem. Efficient IP as a business, we like to think differently around the DDI industry. Innovation is in our DNA. Our goal as a business is to create value and efficiency for our customers through heightened security, advanced automation, and greater simplicity. This next slide with the customer logos, it's always nice to show a graphical summary of the valued Efficient IP customers. Our customers come from industries all over the world, globally, ranging from small and medium-sized organisations to large enterprises, including education, finance, retail, telco, or software companies. Our customers deploy our solutions to help them in digital transformation and support strategic IT initiatives such as cloud adoption technologies, software-defined network into SDN, or IoT, Internet of Things deployments. It's important to note that while some of these names are household global brands that most of us will recognise, we have a huge amount of customers from all different verticals and all sizes, which illustrates our ability to scale up and also down, and our ability to suit our customer-specific drivers. So that's really the Efficient IP introduction as to who we are and what we do. I don't want blind you with the science on that aspect, you know, please feel free to reach out to myself or Nick if you've got any questions around our credentials as a business. But if I hand over to my colleague Nick, who will take you through the next few slides, and then, like I said, if there's any questions, please do put those in the chat box, and we will answer those at the end for you. Okay, so I'll hand over to my colleague Nick.
Yeah, cheers, Kieran. And yeah, thanks everybody for your time today and for your attendance. The topic, as you're probably already aware, is around network automation, and about how, well, a little bit about network automation adoption, very little amount, and then about the primary topic, which is the network source of truth. So, network automation today, it's used, it does exist, it's in transformation projects, it helps for agility. You know, it's intent on lowering costs, but where we've reviewed, we've seen that in these installations or in these implementations, only around 26, so just about a quarter, are maintaining accurate data. Cool. 2/3 of the network teams that are using these tools or implementations or approaches are not aligned within the organization, you know, against existing processes or within new processes that have been created. And then there is a lack of a defined strategy, like I say. So we've got these approaches, we have these implementations, so multiples of everything, and there seems to be lacking, you know, that high level view, that sort of 30,000 foot view of what things should be, how they should be, and how they should work. So Gartner has 3 areas that you should aim to improve on. Number 1 is to create a network source of truth, or a consolidated network source of truth. I actually appreciate the consolidated extra there. So yeah, consolidated network of truth. You should focus on creating standardized, repeatable configuration kits. And then lastly, you should look to implement a software-based abstraction layer. Now, the values of these are defined, but these are the 3 areas that Gartner are suggesting or putting weight behind, you know, users of networking and digital IT space focus on. So we call these the 3 ways to improve automation using DDI. Seems quite logical. And we jump straight in at number 1. You know, what is a network source of truth? Or why is it important? Well, it's important because it becomes an authoritative repository of network data. So it can record your configurations, it can record your extra tags, it can be recording, you know, not as you know, not every single piece of data you've got, but it can be storing all of the authoritative aspects to the network that you maintain, for sure. So this then allows for IP address management to become a source of truth. So for efficient IP, our solid server, our IPAM, very extensible, very easy to create additional, say, metadata columns. It's all queried and searchable via the API. So a way that even I talk about it is as being, you know, like the central database. So central database sounds fantastic, but you want to be constructing it around a dynamic data collection mechanism. We don't want our data to be out of date, you know, because it fails the legitimacy test. I was always taught GIGO, G-I-G-O, which is garbage in, garbage out. So if you're collecting or if you're importing rubbish data, you'll end up with rubbish information. So we want to consolidate the repo, and we want to retain and regain, in some ways, you know, consistency control. We then want to make the system and its data available to the ecosystem. We want to do this for visibility, for reporting, for end-to-end automation. That's really the focus of what we're talking about today. So just to touch in those aspects, collection methods, so dynamic collection in particular. We've got our network there. It's got various different bits on it. And we could talk about the different methods that we could use to collect data from the different bits or from the different areas of the network. So internal DHCP DNS or DNS DHCP could be harnessed within solid server smart architecture, could then be linked into the IPAM, can then be made available by API. Our smart architecture sits very, very happily on top of Microsoft without any agents or plugins or special configuration. It will include ISC, so bind or DHCPD, as well as solid server. Now that's not exhaustive, there are still other methods, but they're the three sort of primary approaches that we see in sort of 99% of all cases. We want to be able to discover our cloud premises or premises as well as our private networking. So if you're, if you've got services in the cloud, if you're spinning cells up or whatever it might be, we want to be able to discover that information and pull back, the networking side of things. So how it's connected, what it's connected to, what VLAN it sits within, what its logical assets are, and then maybe how it talks and how it routes to other parts of the network. It's all valid. It's all part of DDI, and we would like that to be, as I say, synchronized in. So the whole point here is that we don't want things to be manual. We don't want things to be, able to sort of drift and to become, out of consistency with everything else that we're maintaining. And what we would like to do, and what we aim to do, and what we drive to do, is to create what's known as an IP data lake. Now, a data lake is essentially a comprehensive inventory of data. So DNS, DHCP, apps, devices, and related info we mentioned here. It contains rich relations between objects. So not just that an IP is an IP and a MAC is a MAC and a DNS is a DNS name, but that an IP links to a MAC, that a DNS name links to an IP, that an IP links to two DNS names in some ways, forward and reverse. There's many things that can be linked. If we're talking metadata, it could be customer tags, location info, contact data. It could be that a next-gen firewall has observed, and this is an example I've been using for years actually, a next-gen firewall observes obscure or bizarre activity coming from an IP. It records a mark in the IPAM under the metadata column suspicious activity, so that when someone's running a behavior usage report or something, it's looking for any record that has a mark 1 next to it. And if it finds one, it exports it. So the benefits of doing this, you enhance your visibility straight away. You ensure that your data and your configs are in sync and in check and are reflective and respective of what you're trying to do. You enable reconciliation processes so that you have the data that you need to do the job that you need to do. You don't want to get to a job and find out that you have a bit of false information, and it creates problems, or it means you have to sort of rework everything. Simplify the audit trail, demand compliance, and then facilitate orchestration automation. So quite a lot really from having a central a repo or a central database. So making it available, if it is available, which it should be, and from Efficient IP, our solid server is fully available to the ecosystem. As I say, API is our favored in this particular regard. But with an alliance or an integration into the ecosystem, we provide intelligence or triggering from actionable DDI data. So actionable, and what that means is that it's data from within your network. So it could be that a DHCP device has joined. It could be that a DNS name has gone missing. It could be that a MAC address has become bound to an IP address in the wrong part of the network. I mean, it could literally be almost anything. Or it could be, as I've just described, the firewall records a 1 for suspicious activity, and then reports and triggers and things that can look for that particular mark. So if we're offering via API, and I'll skip through the point for a second, but if we're offering everything via API from Solid Server, if it's able to react and respond, or just to relay actionable DDI data, well, that means you can connect silos together. You can drive end-to-end orchestration. You can implement automation and then start doing things with your IT estate that you potentially couldn't do before. I mean, home automation is all the rage, even in the simplest of terms. So we don't want to be left out. You know, if people's houses are becoming smarter than our own core networks, and that's sort of the reality of things in some respects. And just a reference to the API, we are open and API compliant. We are Swagger compliant, so there should be no issues with with integrating, with talking to our API, and having different tools communicate. And then Postman as well is another compliance that we have, and it's a great tool for API work. I won't go into that much more. So point 2 was standardizing on repeatable configuration kits. Gartner says standardizing the site kits reduces upstream process variability, complexity, and resource investments required for automation. I can understand that. If you've got a library of repeatable actions that you're frequently repeating, well, it's cookie cutter, isn't it? To some extent, you've done it once, you've done it 1,000 times, you've done it 1,000,000 times. But if you've done it once and you automate it, it means you don't have to do it another 1,000,000 times or another 1,000 times. So let's create a standard library of templates, maybe of different designs that we want to use to ensure that network ops are always pushing the right buttons and pulling the right levers. So if we wanted to do site designs, we start with a network technology design. We'll focus on this all having a standard or a higher level of standardization. So for things like site design, we want to make sure that we are doing the same thing every time and not allow any sort of variability or error creep. The rule here, or the notion, is that the higher the degree of standardization, the simpler it is to automate. So effectively, you reduce it down to its smallest components, and then you automate effectively around that. So configuration kits are effectively, just macros or just stored procedures if you're from SQL, or they are just canned functions that don't have to just be static. They could be dynamic. You don't have to say just delete this thing. It could be delete this group of things, but only if this group of things qualifies by this metric. And this metric, inverted commas, could have been recorded by another device entirely, another platform. Again, think of DDI, think of IPAM, or IP address management, as being a database. And now when we're in IPAM, it could be that we are defining sites. So you might want to be allocating certain parts of the IP pool for certain functions, creating DHCP DNS config, laying down the network as it exists effectively, and not just where you are, but where you'll be. So you see here a little reference table to different tiered sizing, and I hate to bring up the reference to tiering at the moment, but it's unavoidable. The tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, this is an easy way for us to reference or to represent what size a site is. So you see the description there, but the point here is that from an ops guy, from an admin guy or girl, from automation, you could just pick a tag, so S1, S2, M1, M2, L1, L2. You could then deploy based on the availability, performance, and cost criteria or scoping or sizing that you've recognized. And there's various ways that we do this in the Solid Server and in the IPAM, but it's a very intuitive approach, and it is one that is actually quite, dare I say, pleasurable to sort of see used, rolled out. So Important to recognize that DDI info is a vital component of this site level designing. You know, if you've got your branch office and that you want to, you know, and you want to ramp out or roll out like a design for it, well, number one, we create the standard set of templates of library items. So, you know, as we say, we define the networking space in IPAM, we define the DHCP scopes and ranges, the DNS zones that will be used. We start tagging things like our DNS options. You know, metadata could be, you know, like what site it is, what size it is. Policy could be, you know, around naming conventions. So there's a lot you can do to design even before you've commissioned the office or the building, you know, what it will look like. Well, step two, once you have your library, is to pick from your library. So that's quite a straightforward point to explain. Step three is then you know, the set of DDI resources is automatically deployed. So 1, 2, 3, easy as that. And step two, I didn't mention that you know, that's obviously, you know, when you're commissioning, but it's sort of obvious. So you could be you know, logging change requests at that point, but that's your 3-step approach. So design the site, or design the template, select the template, record the motivation, and then watch the template be deployed effectively. So very straightforward and very, very repeatable. Now, a use case for this, we have a world-leading home furnishing retailer, of which I'm sure there's what, 2? So we are one of them. Talking about one of them, and their initiative was to basically get rid of the headache. They are even bigger now. I mean, especially with all that black packing that they do. You know, they're everywhere. They've got factories that are literally fully automated, where people don't cross lines and it all drives itself. They've got stores everywhere. They've got so many different you know, aspects and products and things they need to be doing, that they needed to increase the smartness, should we say. Now, when doing this, their underlying fabric became stressed. They noticed it was slow to roll out because everything was manual. It became disjointed because maybe different approaches existed somewhere, you know, in comparison to somewhere else. Complex because of networking requirements. It was low visibility because it's potentially far away and you can't see what's being done and when. And it led to inaccuracies. You know, human error is the biggest threat we deal with. So as soon as you give us, you know, people any freedom, you know, we go with it. And if it means missing the one vital step throughout the entire process, you know, we'll do that. Maybe not every time, but it will happen. And that isn't, you know, that's not a judgment or a criticism. We are people. We're not human. Sorry, we're not machines. So let us be us, and let the machines do the bit that the machines can do. So, you know, coming back to that point, literally, that was just making that the machines do what the machines do. Well, Solid Server for us here acts as the abstraction layer. So just to quote Gartner, software-based abstraction layer improves agility, speed at which automations can occur, and the efficiencies. So it's a convenient name drop within automation and maintenance activities, right? So what do we do then? So we define a standard for cross-network communication, for data exchanging, for automation, orchestration, automation. We're using simple libraries, we're standardizing the input outputs, we're reducing the complexity, and then we're starting to leverage API and webhook to do what it is we want to do. How do we start doing this? Well, typically you would need to be a developer, or at least have some coding experience or scripting. You know, you would need to have a little bit of know-how, because you would need to be writing API interactions organically, I guess. So quite a challenge there, you know, quite an uphill battle. Even for the seasoned of developers, you know, having to understand different APIs and the different ways they communicate and so on and so forth, yeah, it becomes a bit of a chore. So luckily, there are standard tools that exist, 3 of which we reference: Terraform, Ansible, and Rundeck. these are able to, they are able to massively speed up, your integrations. You obviously have to install these things first, but once they're up and running, and we become, part of the story, so, the efficient IP solid server, if the DDI becomes widely connected, we provide all of the data you want, and we store all of the data that you have. So how it's enabling automation then is by keeping it, in one central location. We're allowing DDI to remove the manual aspects that we want to be removing, i.e. syncing into DNS, into DHCP, and then we want to be enabling, the hooks, the tie downs, the tiebacks over API. So with, this communication, with this channeling, DDI becomes the start point for pretty much everything. There we go, DDI, the first step in the journey. We'll see, I'll just bring the laser thing. So DDI starts here. So IPAM is the source of truth, foundation of network and security. DDI is vital for standardizing deployment. DDI is is required in most services provided by the abstraction layer. So the layers are all above. DDI is the cornerstone for everything to basically hang off. So whether it be orchestration, whether it be reporting, whether it be configs that you're looking to drive, it all can come back to DDI, and then you can drive, all areas laterally and vertically, just depending on what the task is at hand. So, bringing to a close the key takeaways from this, and I always make the joke that not the ones that are, typical after a pub visit, but key takeaways in terms of the technology or the points we've been talking about. Create a consolidated network source of truth. So we're saying now that DDI provides the IP source of truth and a foundation for network control. Number 2 was standardized repeatable configuration kits. Well, again, DNS, DHCP, IP address management templates simplify the task, the in-out teamwork, and they help to accelerate digital transformation. Lastly, but certainly not leastly, implement a software-based abstraction layer, and that's what Solid Server acts as. It acts as an API interface with webhooks to other systems, so it becomes the key component for global automation. Talk to one place and let it talk to many, so that your client-facing applications have a standardized interface to talk to and are less likely for breakages. And at that point, I bring to a close just our very, very sort of quick rattle through today, and I don't know if there's been any questions that have been raised. If you can say
that's Nick. We've got a couple of questions that have come in from the audience. So again, whilst we're wrapping up, if anyone else has got any questions from the presentation, then please feel free to drop them in. I've got some questions here. Nick, I'm quite happy to answer these if you want me to, but again, if you want to chip in, then feel free. But the first one that we had was, can I use Solid Server as a database of my network that I can access from another system remotely? And I guess, firstly, the answer to that is yes. Solid Server provides the ability to store, and that's in one place, all assets typically in use on networks, which is IP, DNS names, DHCP, leasing flow, VLAN data, hardware, etc. But in addition, additional metadata can be captured easily, allow for customer-specific marks and tags to be applied to data, such as subnets or IPs. And secondly, yes, all of this data is available via the API, as is the ability to create new or manipulate existing data. So essentially, Solid Server can easily become the trusted central repository for all your critical asset information. Okay, so I hope that answers that question or query. Another one we had, obviously a lot of this presentation today is referring to the Gartner white paper, and someone's asked, where can I get access to the Gartner white paper? Because it is like gold dust, some people trying to find the information. But if you head over to our website, which is www.efficientip.com/resources, you will find a link to the white paper there for you. So, please head over there, have a read through the white paper on your lunch break. And again, you've got any questions or queries, please do reach out to Nick or myself. Our details are on this slide here. You'll get a copy of those slides at the end anyway, but I can't see any other questions that have come in from the audience. So if you get any other questions or queries, please do feel to reach out. But what I'll do is I'll go ahead and wrap things up now. Like I said at the beginning, please look out for the email with a link to this presentation and the slides within the next few days. And again, if you've got any questions or queries, please feel free to reach out to us. So thank you again from myself and on behalf of Nick as well. Thank you all for your time today, and we will now go ahead and close this session. Thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.